Good evening, everybody. Welcome inside the Nittany Lions Sports Report. It's live here on Bob Long Sports, simulcast on the Small Player Big Play app. That's Bruce Badgley, our friend at Small Player Big Play, allowing us to broach his network and become part of the Small Player Big Play family. You can find all of our shows on the app. That's Small Player Big Play. Find it in the App Store. We're going to bring in Tyler Gelhaus now to break down what is another game and more of the same. This whiteboard here easily could have said Groundhog Day. Maybe we'll be saying that next week. Here we go again. But the question stands, changing of the guard at quarterback, yes or no? We saw Will Levis almost exclusively in the second half, and there's a lot to talk about there, but a guy that was as much of a week ago as it was Sean Clifford, right? He was James Franklin's guy at quarterback. That has now changed, at least in the interim. And Tyler, your thoughts on what we saw on Saturday?
Overall, if you would have told me at the beginning of the season that Penn State would be 0-4, 4 games in, the only winless team in the Big Ten, I'd say you're crazy. Yet here we are, 0-4. They found different ways really to lose every game. The common theme that I've noticed, and I believe anybody that has been watching has noticed, the turnovers continue to kill this team, killing momentum, spotting the other team points, as well as early, getting into early holes in the first half of almost every game outside of Indiana. Honestly, the first drive of the season, it went for 7 minutes, 75 yards, capped off by Pat Fryermuth touchdown, Indiana week 1. It feels like Penn State really hasn't led. Really hasn't led since then.
Yeah,
obviously,
listen, stop the count after that
right,
first drive.
They led a little bit, obviously, in the fourth quarter before Devin Ford scored, and Indiana went down and tied it for about a minute and a half, and then, of course, led it for a little bit in overtime. Outside of that, that's all that they've led all season. So let that one sink in, and, when you're trying to claw back every game and you're making mistakes, turnovers, it's a recipe for disaster. It's not a recipe to win games, and right now you're seeing it. We saw Sean Clifford on Saturday, intercepted, was targeting to Jahan Dotson, wasn't even close. Actually, it was probably one of the worst interceptions I've seen. It was almost like he was throwing it right to the Nebraska defender. Then he
you know what's interesting? I'll stop you real quick, is the broadcasters botched that play completely. They kind of came back later and fixed their mistake, but they were talking about a communication issue. They were talking about the route being run or lack of.
Just an awful throw.
Horrible throw.
Yeah,
the throw is to the sideline.
It should have been a completion for 10, 15 yards, whatever it was. He ran a good route.
It's a 12-yard out.
Just
and
terrible.
Horrible throw.
And then, Sean Clifford then later did his best impersonation of Carson Wentz, and was trying to do too much, holding onto the ball, sacked, strip sack, scoop and score.
And even that, did the defender really actually get his hand in there, or did he just kind of lose the football? I feel the latter.
I don't need whatever it was. It's
not
we're
good
seeing
enough.
It over and over again. We saw it last week with Maryland, and it's and then Penn State moves on to Will Levis. I will say this about Will Levis: this is the second time he's come in within 2 years, and there's been a spark. Obviously, last year at Ohio State, Sean Clifford was banged up halfway through the game. They were down, I believe, 21-3, something like that, maybe 21-0. Next thing you know, bang, bang, bang. It's a 3-point game, 4-point game maybe. He brings a spark to the team. He's still not, and I don't know if he ever will be, that great of a passer. Obviously, in your quarterback, you want a great passer. He's got a rocket for an arm. He's very athletic, tough, big, fast. Will like to run you over, but is he the answer long term? I don't know. Is he the answer to get Penn State through the season? Maybe pick up a couple wins here at the end, build some momentum, maybe state his case to be the front runner for the starting job next year. It's definitely a possibility. I don't think that James Franklin has named a starter yet. I think tomorrow being his Tuesday.
Yep. Depending upon when you're watching
right,
this.
Yeah, Tuesday being his press conference. By the time you watch this, you might have that answer. But it'll be interesting to see. I would be shocked if they don't name Will Levis a starting quarterback. It would be a disservice to the football team and really to Will Levis not to give him a shot here.
I think he deserves the shot. I think right now where Sean Clifford is mentally and physically, I think it's probably the right decision. With that said, Will Levis is not a guy who can take you to the next level. He's a guy who can win you a couple of football games. You mentioned him having a strong arm, Tyler. He certainly does. But Will Levis is a guy who does not have the touch, does not have the ability to read zone coverage at this time, really doesn't have an ability or a knack for getting off his first progression to his second or his third. And you know what, Tyler? That's actually okay, because that was not the role that he was tasked with. He is thrown in at the deep end, be the guy, throw the ball 31 times, they asked him, in less than 3 quarters of a football game that you come into. That's a lot to ask for a guy who is primarily a runner.
Yeah, and with that, I think he made some really nice throws.
Sure.
He threaded the needle on a fourth down to Keandre Lambert-Smith along the sideline. Obviously, the highlight reel was the scramble, spin out, throw to Pat Frymuth wide open. Couldn't score, ran out of gas, but they ended up scoring on that drive. He made some plays with his arm. Obviously, he's a run-first quarterback, but he did make some nice plays. Again, I don't.
How do I put this, though? He made some nice plays with his arm. Do you trust that he's going to be able to repeat that?
We'll have to see. I mean, based on what I've seen last year, probably not, because I think if the coaching staff had more confidence in him, I think they maybe would have gone to him a little bit earlier this year.
Sure.
I'm just hoping that they can at least find some rhythm, honestly, with the quarterback position, not turn the ball over, and just try to pick up a couple wins here at the end. I mean, you have Iowa and Michigan, Michigan State, and Rutgers. Actually, Rutgers and Michigan State in that order. 0-4. I mean, you could definitely go 4-4, but you could definitely also go like 1-7.
Mm-hmm.
So, not much to play for the wins and loss columns, but for a guy like Will Levis, I mean, this is his time to really prove himself. Does he? I don't know. Do we see Taquan Roberson, redshirt freshman? I don't know.
Haven't heard any indication that he's
No,
anywhere
I
near
haven't
ready.
either, but it's almost like you wonder, do they now move him to the number 2 just to see what they have? I mean, you know what you unfortunately have in Sean Clifford. You're starting to learn a little bit about Will Levis. Now, with the season being what it is and almost glorified scrimmages here at the end, do you give Taquan Roberson the shot if Will Levis, gets hurt, struggles? I would like to see it just because I know, we know what we're getting with Clifford, and I think you got to, see what you have going into next year before a freshman like Christian Veilleux comes on the campus, who, by the way, should not and probably will not be ready. He'll probably take a red shirt, and they got to build him up in the weight room. And
sure.
So it's not like you have an immediate impact guy coming in, unless, of course, the transfer portal, which is definitely a pretty strong option, I think, right now.
Yep. I think that has to be the discussion. We talked about it last week. We'll continue to have that discussion. But again, my thought on Will Levis is he is a guy who does make throws, right or wrong, and maybe it's me. You don't really have the confidence that he's going to make the next one. He hasn't shown that yet. I don't think he has the ability to read the defenses. And I think that here's where Kirk Ciarrocca can really make his money. Not that this is the difference between Penn State going to a big-time bowl game and not. I think that ship has sailed. But okay, show me what you can do with a guy who you absolutely must keep this offense simple for. Can you do it, right? Can you run? And you know what? Maybe we can do a little whiteboard segment to talk about ways to keep this offense simple if it is Will Levis at the starting quarterback. We'll do that here tonight as well. But that's going to be my question, is how simple can you run this offense while still being able to move the ball down the field? And to his credit, they scored 17 points in the second half, gave it a scare, no doubt about it. Obviously didn't make a great play on the last play of the game.
Right.
But, I mean, we're micromanaging here. This is a backup quarterback that doesn't have confidence, or we don't have confidence in him throwing the football, and he almost brought you back.
And you're down 24-3 at one point.
Yeah,
again,
27-6 at halftime, too.
Digging yourself a hole. Not easy to come out. I mean, Penn State outplayed Nebraska really the second half.
No doubt about it.
But it's too little, too late. And that's kind of what you're seeing. Another thing I saw with Levis was, and it's the same thing I saw last year at Ohio State, was he added a spark.
Yep.
he's an emotional guy. He'll run somebody over and he'll get up like all pumped up about it. And the sidelines seem to respond well to it, and the team. So, but then you saw him start last year against Rutgers at the end of the season and just didn't look good. Clifford was hurt.
Yep.
Didn't look good against Rutgers. So you really have such a small sample size, which is why I'm really interested to see what he can do here in the final 4 games of the season.
And here's the deal as well. This team, Nebraska, did not prep for Will Levis. They prepped for Sean Clifford. Ohio State last year didn't prep
Very true.
for Will Levis.
Good
They
point.
prepped for Sean Clifford. Let's see what happens when a team has a full week to prepare for a one-trick pony. I really don't mean that in a negative way. It's just you know what Will Levis can do, and you also know very well what he is not capable of doing at this level.
He's not the most accurate quarterback.
And I think you see a regression next
Right.
week if it is Will Levis. Given that, on limited film, you're going to see Iowa with a chance to prepare for him.
Now, let me ask you this. I've heard the comparison a lot. I've seen the comparison a lot. Tommy Stevens is a name that comes up, when people reference Will Levis, the backup, more of a runner, wildcat, that kind of thing. Do you see similarities between the two? I mean, do you think that, or who do you even think is the better or could be or would be the better college quarterback?
Tommy Stevens or Will Levis?
Mm-hmm.
Tommy Stevens.
Yeah.
I think Tommy Stevens came in with more hype. He was a better thrower of the football, although the game at Michigan would not necessarily give you that same opinion. But, yeah, I think Tommy Stevens was a much better quarterback. And if you could have Tommy Stevens playing quarterback for this team right now, it's a different story. I don't think Sean Clifford would have ever won the job. Of course, the years wouldn't have lined up to have gotten him here, but in a theoretical situation, Stevens was a big, strong guy. Remember, there were people that wanted him to get the job over McSorley, which was nuts. But, I don't really see it as a great comparison other than
the run.
Those two guys are much
physical.
bigger and stronger runners than the current starting quarterback. But I think in both situations, certainly McSorley to Clifford and then Stevens the backup to Levis. I mean, the 2016-2017 teams were far superior at this position, starter and backup.
And I think something that's going to be really interesting to follow from the end of the season, really, I guess, through December, January, is going to be watching this quarterback room, and even into the spring with like an open competition.
Yeah.
They're slated to have Clifford, Levis, Roberson, Micah Bowens, and Christian Veilleux, which is 5 quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I can assure you that those 5 come next fall, it won't be the same group of 5. Something's going to happen where somebody or multiple people transfer out, somebody comes in. There's going to be a shakeup. I don't think the quarterback room that we're expecting to see in the spring of 2021 will be the quarterback room fall of 2021.
Yeah. God bless. You'd certainly hope so.
Yeah.
Things aren't going well enough right now in that regard. So the Penn State Nittany Lions are 0-4. The all-world offensive coordinator, Kirk Shiraka, somehow, that has not panned out to this point. The question is quarterback versus offensive coordinator versus the other coordinators at the positional spots on offense, right? Who is James Franklin to blame? What is the real node of interest? What is driving this right now? And it's an important question because it drives not only what happens in the next 4 games, but I think we get into a much larger discussion over the rest of this season, which is what does next year look like? What does the recruiting trail look like? And what does the future of Penn State football look like? The other story we saw, we talked a little bit about James Franklin last week and whether he would bolt for USC, and now the question is, will he bolt for USC? Jordan Rogers, a former player for him at Vanderbilt, tossed the idea with Will Muschamp getting fired from South Carolina. Would
the other USC, huh?
Exactly. Like that segue?
Yeah. I didn't hear that. What did he say?
He basically said for South Carolina, why would you not take the shot right now at James Franklin, pay him what he wants? Yes, the buyout is going to be prohibitive, but gives you an opportunity to perhaps outspend others that would be a little uneasy doing that right now. Bring him in. He's a guy that understands the SEC East and how to compete at a program that has not been universally and historically successful in that division. That's great and all. I don't see James Franklin jumping from Penn State to South Carolina. If it's Southern Cal we can have the discussion, but that is a demotion there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the weather's great there. I mean, that's that's about all. I mean,
you're on the right to get smoked by Florida and Georgia in the warm weather. Congrats.
Yeah, I mean, the SEC, and then you got tough crossover games.
Yeah,
Clemson, right. Well, that's out of conference.
That's what. Oh, you're saying crossover
they play
to the West.
Clemson
Sure.
every year at the end of the season.
Yeah,
and then you got to cross over to the West still. But I think that's really just a former player, promoting his coach.
The only thing is, as a former player, does he keep in touch with Franklin? Is there anything to it? The answer is probably no.
Yeah, probably not. But I think he's probably just throwing his name out there. I haven't heard James Franklin's name come up for South Carolina.
Muschamp just got fired.
He just got fired, and I saw they were not that this is a South Carolina football show, but the Appalachian State coach, Coastal Carolina coach, everybody's favorite Joe Brady was mentioned for it. So it kind of mentioned the guys in that Carolina area.
The guy that you couldn't believe I brought up when I talked about which coach would you like leading your program, Hugh Freeze at Liberty.
Yeah, I saw his name on that list as well, actually.
Yeah.
I saw too, his record at Ole Miss was actually phenomenal.
Yeah, and he was the guy who gave Alabama the most trouble.
Right, yeah, and look at what he's doing at Liberty right now. So he's going to land somewhere soon, and it could be South Carolina.
Could be. Yeah. So interesting discussion there about James. Franklin.
You like Hugh Freeze a lot.
I do.
Don't you?
I do. Yep.
That's awesome.
Listen, if you can get by some of the things he did in his personal life, and listen, nothing terrible, but if you can get by some of that stuff and the fact that there were some allegations of NCAA issues from a recruiting standpoint,
and he's
a good coach.
And he's at Liberty now. It's a Christian school, so he's getting a second chance treatment, and then
there you go.
And he'll go on somewhere in the SEC again.
I'm interested to see where he ends up. Listen, he's an entertaining character. I don't know if he'd be my best buddy if we cross paths, but I enjoy watching him coach football.
He can coach.
Yeah. But, again, beyond that, we talked a lot about offense. We talked about coaching. The other thing that we cannot possibly leave this show without saying is the communication on the defensive side is atrocious right now. They are struggling badly giving up big plays.
Well, and it's the same kind of plays, the jet sweeps.
And anything when you get on the edge.
They're not even getting any hands on them. If they're playing flag football, they wouldn't even be pulling the flag. They're not even close.
Yep.
You saw it on the first play of game against Ohio State. Nebraska says, oh, that's a good play. They run it, touchdown, not touched. I mean, you're right. I mean, the defense, it just seems like it's the same thing week in and week out. Brent Pry, you lose the best defensive player in college football, Micah Parsons. Obviously, he's extremely valuable to the team. I never thought that it would be this much of a drop-off not having him out there.
No, I agree because, in theory, I like the linebacker core. I like Jesse Luquette. I like Ellis Brooks. I think Brandon Smith has some work to do, but his flashes are incredible. So what's the issue?
I don't know.
I think the defensive backs have been playing pretty well. Your top two defensive backs have been playing. Keaton Ellis has gotten burnt. Marquise Wilson has gotten burnt. But I think Joey Porter Jr. and Tariq Castro-Fields have generally been bright spots in a tough year.
Castro-Fields, I don't think he played on Saturday,
if
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, right, this past Saturday.
I don't know if he was banged up or in trouble, whatever the case
may be.
But
in the preceding games, I think he was really solid.
On the topic of the linebackers, there's a lot of talk that they might not be playing the positions that are best suited for them. So you have Brooks is a middle linebacker, and that's really all he can play.
I would agree.
You have Luquetta, who's playing the weak side, who's probably also best suited at the Mike. The middle.
I'd agree.
And then Brandon Smith is the Sam, which is the strong side, and people think that he might be better over at the Will.
Because he's struggling in pass coverage.
Right. So, in theory, you could look at something like Smith at the Will, Luquetta at the Mike / Brooks, whoever. I actually prefer Luquetta. And then, maybe Lance Dixon at the Sam, Curtis Jacobs at the Sam, kind of rotate them in.
I could dig that.
You get some better athletes on the field. No shot at the middle linebackers, whether it be Luquetta or Brooks. I mean, you're just getting.
But Brooks, I mean, Brooks is not as good of an athlete,
right? He is.
As Lucetta.
He's a middle guy, and that's really it. Not that that's a bad thing, but that's just the reality of the situation.
Yep. And I've been a Brooks fan. I've enjoyed his progress and feel like he can play at this level. But you do ask the question, and the question is asked of you, if the defense is playing this poorly and the linebackers, which was still supposed to be a strength, has not been.
Right.
The question is asked of you, and there may be some changes that need to be made at some point. At least tinkers. An 0-4 football team with dreams of a college football playoff next year has to figure out some answers quickly.
And that's kind of where I am with the season. That's actually where I have been really since the Ohio State loss, and then obviously the Maryland loss then, made that much easier. But why not see what you have? And that's kind of what I'm saying with Levis. Even Roberson, why not run, Holmes and Lee and get these freshmen more involved, on defense. Get Lance Dixon out there. Get Curtis Jacobs out there. Get these guys. Let them make their mistakes now. Let them make great plays now. But, just to kind of get ready for the next season and for years down the road, get these guys some experience, especially guys on the D-line. D-N is going to be a thin position coming up in a few years. Start getting guys experience and game experience so it should pay dividends.
Here's another one, a position that we thought might be a little bit stronger because we didn't feel like they were losing much, the safety position. So we figured Garrett Taylor, all right, get Brisker out there on more of a full-time basis. We feel like that's an upgrade. That has not been the case either.
Well, the issue that I have with it is you hear, coaches say, he's going to have a breakout year, unbelievable safety, all this.
Yeah.
And then you're not seeing it translate to the field, and it's why is it they're hyping players up that inaccurately and just kind of like false hope, or for whatever reason it's not translating in the field, whether it's in game decision making, preparation. I don't know what it is. I mean, I think somebody like Brisker has a ton of talent. It's just you're not seeing it put together out there.
Yep.
And then that also begs a question, does somebody like Brisker come back next year? This is a free year eligibility. He is a senior. It's not like his draft stock is shooting up or anything like that. And
sure.
It's something to think about. But then I've also said, like, why not get some of these younger guys at safety some reps? Trent Gordon, who switched positions from corner. Tyler Rudolph, another young guy. Just see what you have, really, especially when you have seniors in line at those spots. When you don't know if they're coming back, you got to start thinking about next year.
Jair Brown, we've seen some of him,
another one,
right? And a guy that if maybe Lamont Wade wasn't sticking up the middle there and taking a lot of snaps, because we've seen some decent flashes out of Jair Brown, right? It's not a Tyler Rudolph situation where it's like, hey, what is this guy? We've seen him out there for some snaps.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know the answer, but what I can tell you is the issue we saw last year, communication on over-the-top routes, communication between defensive back and safety, which is such a key and essential handoff, if you will, just continues to be a struggle. And at some point, when the personnel changes, that has to be a coaching issue.
Yeah, and I don't understand how you can have communication errors when there's nobody at the stadium. I mean, seriously. I mean, it's not like you can't hear.
Well, I don't know if it's a sound thing, though. I think it's just X's and O's and football IQ and a coaching thing.
Most likely it's all stuff that happens before the game, too.
Yeah.
Preparation all week. And I don't know if they're missing something or it's not translating, but it's a glaring weakness.
It is. It's absolutely a weakness. So, a lot going not so good for Penn State. Yes, they fought hard, almost came back and won the football game. A lot more fight than they did against Maryland. I didn't come across thinking this team doesn't care as much as I did at the Maryland game. I came across thinking, boy, this team is not good enough to turn the ball over a couple of times and expect to come back and win a football game, right? There were years in the past, and give Trace McSorley and Saquon Barkley and those Penn State teams of not too distant old credit. They didn't turn the ball over much, but you got the sense that if and when they did, they could come back and win the football game. This is a team that cannot give defensive touchdowns up or give the opposing offense the ball in the red zone and expect to win those football games. They just don't have the explosive offense. Clifford doesn't have it this year. Levis is not necessarily your big play guy.
Right.
You have to stay in front of the sticks. You have to not turn the ball over, and you cannot get into penalty trouble.
You talk about not turning the ball over, and it's funny because Penn State had 500 yards of offense against Nebraska. They had 500 yards against Indiana.
Yep.
They out yardaged them, each of those teams by 200 total yards. And usually that's all. If you look at the yards, time of possession in a box score, that's usually going to tell you the story. But the turnovers is really telling the story this year.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know what Penn State is on their plus minus, but they got to be close to I would say they're probably -7 on the year in the turnover battle, maybe more. Because I don't really think that they've. I think maybe was this their first turnover when Brandon Smith intercepted it on Saturday. I can't even think of a.
I don't think that's true. Well,
they
Lamont
had one.
Wade
They
in the
had
first
one at Indiana,
Indiana,
1 or 2 at Indiana, but
yeah,
not many compared to what they've given up. I mean, I think Clifford alone has close to 8 turnovers this year between fumbles and interceptions. So,
yeah,
got to win the turnover battle. The yards and the time of possession, sure, that's all good, but turnover battle.
Turnover battle indeed. Let's talk about the Iowa Hawkeyes as Penn State goes out to Iowa City to take on Iowa in a game between two struggling Big Ten programs. Just program me on repeat there, Tyler. We're going to be talking about that for each of the next 4 weeks here. Penn State heading to play a struggling Big Ten program, and this week it's going to be the Iowa Hawkeyes. Any thoughts on this game, or is it more of the same from the last 2 weeks?
I have to be honest. I haven't watched Iowa play like I usually do. I know that they are breaking in a new quarterback.
Played very well this past weekend.
They started 0-2, and I believe now they're 2-2.
Yep. And by the way, I think I got that pick right.
I think you did. Every year, though, I mean, really since 2017, Iowa has given Penn State all it can handle, and Penn State comes out every year, in a hard-fought, close game. Whether it's at Beaver Stadium or Kinnick, usually always a pretty good atmosphere. I don't know what to really expect, especially because Will Levis is probably going to be the starting quarterback. Iowa can prepare for him. Iowa's always going to be tough up front on both lines. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Penn State lost, and I wouldn't be surprised if they somehow found a way to win. And it's like you're thinking, well, their first win came against Iowa. You wouldn't think that they would beat Iowa in a game like this, the way the season's been going. But
who's Iowa though, right?
Yeah, I mean, they don't have much of an identity either, but they do have 2 wins. But that's pretty much where I am with it.
Right, absolutely. And I think this is an Iowa team that give their coaching staff credit and give their players credit. I think that a one-dimensional Will Levis is going to be.
He's going to have to make some plays with his arm.
Yes.
And I don't know if he's capable of doing that.
They're going to force him to do that. That's going to be a key. They're going to put 8 in the box. They're going to count on their corners and essentially their safety in some situations to play one-on-one coverage and say, Will Levis beat us. Not only that, anybody not named Jahan Dotson beat us. Now, Pat Freiermuth, I think, becomes a really interesting facet of the game here because there's your big target,
security
super
blanket.
athletic. You're right. And he's a guy who can run routes over the middle and not be afraid of getting overmatched, hit hard. He's a guy that can get in there into the teeth of the defense and really make an impact. I think that is enormous for a quarterback that you don't want him throwing a 13, 15-yard out. You don't trust him to put the air on the ball to lob one over the top and let Dotson go get it. So the read option and then that tight end faking a block and going over the middle, we can talk about this on the blitz as well. That's how you keep things simple for Will Levis. That's going to be a key is his hookup with Freiermuth as well as Brenton Strange, who's done a nice job.
For sure. And I think to add to that, it's crucial that they don't fall behind because if you fall behind with the quarterback – who hasn't made a start this year and has only made one collegiate start, whose strength is really not throwing, and he's a quarterback. You don't want to fall behind because it's going to force him to throw more. If you can either stay in front of the chain, stay in front of Iowa, let Will Levis do what he does best, running. And he did actually look okay throwing the ball on Saturday, but you don't want to make him come back like he did on Saturday. Get ahead early and try to just maintain the lead, and you never know. You might be able to come away with your first win.
See what happens. That's Penn State at Iowa this Saturday. This is the Nittany Lions Sports Report. He's Tyler Gelhaus. I'm Bob Long. Stay with us. We'll be back in just 30 seconds as we go to the whiteboard and break down how can Kirk Ciarrocca earn his money this week? How can he make this offense simple for Will Levis when that opposing defense has all week to prepare? We'll be right back.
What does your character look like? Does it bounce back after each setback? Does it stand out by standing up? Does it make good on good intentions? Character is invisible until it's not. Only through action will the world know what it's made of, what you're made of. Find out how you can strengthen the character of your community alongside empowered veterans and families of the fallen at travismanion.org.
Welcome to the Blitz here on the Nittany Lions Sports Report. We go to the whiteboard and break down one aspect of Penn State football. And today, we're going to look at Kirk Ciarrocca's offense, and with the changing of the guard, or so it appears, at quarterback. What's it going to look like with Will Levis playing an entire football game? Here's the important part. Last year against Ohio State, Will Levis came in. He provided a spark. The next game against Rutgers, he came in, really did not play well whatsoever. Sean Clifford was out. It was Will Levis's show, and Will Levis was not a quality quarterback at the college level. This past weekend against Nebraska, Will Levis comes in, provides a spark. This coming week against Iowa, who can say? Here's my thought. These teams have not had time, nor necessarily the penchant, to prepare for Will Levis as if he was going to be the starting quarterback. Now they do. Rutgers last year did. Things didn't go well. There were certainly other things at play at that time of year. The team was hitting a lull. It was coming off a tough loss. But they really did not play well in that game. What's Will Levis to do now? Why, perhaps, does he not play well, or did he not play well in that single opportunity when the other team and the other opposing defense did have the opportunity to prepare? For me, it's because Will Levis is in some ways a bit of a one-trick pony. He's going to run a lot of run-pass options. He's going to take the snap here. Running back's going to come in motion, and right here the decision is going to be made. Is Will Levis going to hand this football off to the running back, or is he going to take it himself? And it's driven in the run-pass option. We've talked about this a lot. You're going to see the offensive line crash this way. You're going to leave this defensive end either unblocked, or it's going to be Pat Freiermuth chucking a block at that point, right? And based upon what this defensive end does, Will Levis reads that defensive end's eyes. If that defensive end commits to the running back, he hands it off. If the defensive end commits to the running back, he's going to pull it. If the defensive end is not decisive, that's when he's going to hand it off to the running back, whether that be Devin Ford or Keziah Holmes or Kevon Lee. However, there are situations when a quarterback is unable to throw the football where this defense can get really aggressive. So right now we're looking at a 3 wide receiver set with a tight end blocking, a running back, and Will Levis in the backfield. Here's this one safety that I highlighted. Well, what if, instead of that safety being over the top, they're going to creep that safety up here and throw him on the line? Now you have a defensive end who can definitely commit to this running back, and an extra linebacker, essentially, a strong safety coming forward to take the quarterback if and when he does pull it and take it off to run himself. Now, why would Iowa or any defense be able to do that? Well, if Will Levis is unable to throw the ball with consistency, with the touch he needs, well, then why wouldn't a team like Iowa be comfortable with one-on-one coverage in the secondary? So you could have 8 guys in the box, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's your normal front 7, plus the safety coming up makes 8. So, yes, is there an opportunity for Penn State with the right route to beat somebody over the top without that safety help? Yes. But Will Levis, do you trust him to make that throw? Does the defense, are they willing to take the chance and allow him to throw that football? Do they think he can be successful enough to burn a safety who's coming up to stop the run? That's the question. And I think what we see this weekend, that's going to be the key. Will Levis, now this Iowa team has all day and all week to prepare for him at quarterback. Does he find targets in the deep ball. I don't think he throws a great ball. Doesn't put enough air on it. Certainly has all the capabilities from an arm strength perspective, but accuracy and touch are not two of his strong suits. What do I think Penn State can do to make life a little easier on Will Levis and maybe take an effort into countering this defense, putting 8 in the box? I think it's going to come down to this guy right here, and that's your tight end, Pat Freiermuth. Let's take a wide receiver off the field here as well. Taking another wide receiver does put another safety back here. You're going to put Brenton Strange either outside on this side. He also likes to come in motion at times as well, and then chuck a block coming opposite and counter to where the defense or the offensive linemen are trying to push downfield. But these guys are huge. Will Levis, he's only going to make 1 or 2 reads at the absolute most. He's not developed enough as a quarterback to make multiple progressions. So I think the opportunity to really scale down this field, right? The middle of this field is where Will Levis is going to be able to have success. And so what does Penn State have the ability to do to create that middle of the field, to shorten this field? It's going to be your tight ends. It's going to be your big targets, Pat Freiermuth, your big target, Brenton Strange. It's going to be opportunities to run a streak with Pat Freiermuth, take a linebacker with you, and then bring Parker Washington, bring Jahan Dotson across the middle. I don't think this is going to be one with streaks, and I don't think this is going to be one outside the numbers this weekend. It's going to be Will Levis. Can he make the right decision in the run-pass option? If and when make that Iowa commits 8 guys to the box the way we saw Nebraska do at times last week, can Will Levis make the right read? It doesn't need to be a heroic play. Can he shorten the field and condense the field and find big targets? Can those big targets open up space in the field for underneath and crossing routes? Can Will Levis read the linebacker as well to not allow those crossing routes to become interceptions? Those are the keys. Iowa's going to have all week to prepare for Will Levis. Rutgers had all week to prepare for Will Levis last year, and it went a lot differently than Ohio State did in limited action. So this is Will Levis's time to show that he can be a starting quarterback at this level. This is Kirk Ciarrocca's time to show that he's going to earn his money as an offensive coordinator, allowing an offense to flourish that has, 1, struggled so far, and 2, is putting a quarterback in place that isn't ready for the big time from a reading progressions, switching the field, and throwing to all corners perspective. If it's Will Levis's time, it has to be done with a simplified offense. It has to be done with a run-first mentality and creating some openings in the pass game that are some easy throws. And that is the key for Penn State football and the offense to be successful this weekend against Iowa. We'll send it back to the studio now for the rest of the show.
What does your character look like? Does it bounce back after each setback? Does it stand out by standing up? Does it make good on good intentions? Character is invisible until it's not. Only through action will the world know what it's made of, what you're made of. Find out how you can strengthen the character of your community alongside empowered veterans and families of the fallen at travismanion.org.
Welcome back, everybody, inside the Nittany Lions Sports Report. Bob Long, Tyler Galehouse, and time for our guest picker. Ben Abercrombie is here, ready to regale us with stories of high school and college football past. How are you today?
Doing well, Bob. Thanks for having me here, man. I'm excited.
My pleasure. It's been a long time. Good to see you again.
Yeah, we go way back to Horsham Little League.
That's right, we do.
That's right. Bob's was the best umpire for the for the 12 years in under league at Horsham Little League, so it was awesome.
Well, I appreciate that very much. Yeah, I've kind of given that up, moved on to broadcasting, but I don't know what would get me back there, getting blasted again by baseballs with catchers that couldn't quite keep it in front. But we're here now, feeling good about it. Ben, want to talk about your football past? So, Archbishop Wood, as a high school player, and went to Mercyhurst to play college. I got you with the Mizzou Tigers. I know your brother is coaching down there as well, so a lot of football heritage to get to tonight. I think it would be fun for our listeners and viewers to hear a little bit about it. Let's start with the high school stuff, because obviously we got a LaSalle football presence here with the things we do on Bob Long Sports, with the Small Player Big Play app, a lot of Lebanon, Lancaster area folks, so Harrisburg out to that area. I know as an Archbishop Wood grad, especially the time you were playing, that strikes terror into all of those fan bases. Tell us a little bit about your experiences there.
Yeah, absolutely. Archbishop Wood graduated there from 2013. I was there for my junior and senior year. And I think my junior year team probably was, I don't know, you could argue was one of the greatest teams in high school football. We won the state championship, 52-0.
Over who?
Bishop McDevitt.
Nice.
Is that any good?
And at Hershey, right? Hershey Park Stadium?
Oh, yeah. Hershey
Nice.
Park. They packed it in, and we had them packing by the third quarter. So it was pretty good. And it was fun. We had a lot of talent on those teams. I mean, 5 or 6 guys go Division I in the senior class above us, and then the senior year class when I was there, I think we had another handful of guys there. And then after me, I mean, Archbishop Wood just seems to be like a spot for brewing talent.
I mean, right now you look at college football, Kyle Pitts, tight end at Florida.
Yep.
We talked about Ryan Bates, played at Penn State, now playing for the Buffalo Bills. Colin Thompson caught a touchdown pass for the Carolina Panthers. The list goes on and on. I know I'm missing a ton of guys on that list, but it's an impressive list. Mark Webb, defensive back, Georgia. So very impressive list that Wood's put out there the last couple of years. And I don't know how they're doing this year. I know they just played Malvern Prep, but Wood is the machine locally here in the Montgomery-Bucks County area.
Yeah, I mean, LaSalle got him this year. We'll just throw that out there.
Yeah.
But I will say this. We're talking about the big athletic guys on the defensive line, offensive line, guys like yourself that are going to go play at a high level. I think the next guy is Robert Jackson, and I don't know how well you follow the program. 6'6", 260 defensive lineman. He's going to go somewhere big and is super talented.
Yeah, that seems to be like the new hot commodity name out of that high school. I know a couple people. I know my older brother follows high school sports a lot, and so does Ty, and he keeps me up to date on that. And that seems to be the big name that's going to come out, and wish him nothing but the best. He's probably going to be a good stud.
No doubt about it. And then Mercyhurst. So staying in Pennsylvania here, but on the western side of the state. What was that experience like?
It was awesome. Mercyhurst, we play in the PSAC. I think it's really great football. Obviously, I was a step too slow and a couple pounds too light to play Division I, but no, I loved Mercyhurst. It was a good time. We play Slippery Rock. We beat them a couple times. Beat Cal. It's overall just we play a lot of good talent there, and it was an awesome experience. Really cold up in Erie, PA, though.
Tell the audience about your favorite memory, at least what you've told me about coolest stadium. I think you know where this story's going.
Yeah, so I'm actually very proud to say that I am undefeated in the Big House. In 2014, we played Slippery Rock there, and they had it scheduled for their homecoming, so they thought they were going to put a whooping on us. We went down 23-24 at half and held them scoreless, won 45-24. So.
What, the Big House?
Yeah.
Why was their why did they schedule
I think like a while back in like 1988 or something, their PA announcer was from Slippery Rock, or somehow
there was a connection.
Yeah, somehow the tradition started that they were announcing Slippery Rock scores. Lo and behold, they had a game there against Shippensburg in like the 80s. It was the #1 highest attended Division II game. So they did that like 25 years later, and they picked Mercyhurst, and they picked the wrong team because they went packing. But no, it was fun. It was a really cool experience, though. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen all the stadiums out there in the Big Ten. Obviously, I've never been to. I hate to say it on the show, but I've never been to Happy Valley. I need to get up there.
You got to get up there.
Yeah.
Once everything's back to normal, and there's a better product on the field, of course, but nothing like Penn State with the tailgates and the atmosphere and all that. So you got to get up there.
We take care of our guest pickers the way Penn State takes care of its recruits. Don't
Exactly.
you worry. Dan. We'll get you up there.
Yeah, that's next on my list. I think that is especially being in state and only 3 hours away.
Yeah, great time.
Shame on me for not going out there.
Next question I have for you. You were talking about this PSAC. Is Ship in the PSAC?
Shippensburg, yeah, they are.
So Penn State just picked up a commitment. It's going to be a run-on, it seems like. Well, that's a Bill O'Brien term. But
right.
a walk-on Winston Eubanks, which was a LaSalle College High School wide receiver, had 3 really good years at Ship, and now is making the move up to Penn State. Not sure what his role is going to be up there, but we're certainly excited for him. You talked about all the talent in the PSAC. Obviously, John Kuhn played many years in the NFL. I assume there were some stories of guys that continued their athletic career after the PSAC.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned John Kuhn. Brent Grimes was a Shippensburg guy. We had Jari Evans was a
Bloomsburg, I think.
guy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who was the closest one that I played against. I played against Adam Shaheen, but he wasn't in the PSAC. He was in the GLIAC. But
is he the tight end?
Tight end for
Bears, Chicago?
Got drafted
Or
by
got
Chicago.
drafted by them, right. I remember hearing, yeah.
And then he went to Miami now.
Okay.
So that was the biggest name I played against that went on to another level. Obviously, you had guys that like kind of muddled around into the NFL a little bit, had a cup of coffee in like training camp. California, University of PA, though, out west in Slippery Rock, IUP. Those are the teams that are going to get the talent that has a shot to go to the next level. So it's kind of cool to sit back and
and not to interrupt, but I mean you're talking about Winston Eubanks. I think the talent, honestly, from D2 and especially in the PSAC to D1. Ben said it earlier, an inch short, maybe a little thin or a little. I don't think you're short, but maybe a step too slow. It's not that big of a difference, with D2 and D1. I mean, a lot of it is size and speed, but the playmakers are there, and there's a lot of good talent. Even when you get down to Division III, believe it or not, it's just a couple small things that separate, those levels from D1, and those guys, they'll find you if you're that good to make it.
Yep, absolutely true. So now tell us about your brother Jack. Mizzou.
Oh yeah,
he's coaching at Missouri. What's he up to? How is he enjoying the experience? Is that his forever career? I mean, not Mizzou, but pursuing football at that level.
Yeah, I definitely think so. My older brother was 2 years older than me. Always, I would say, was probably my toughest critic growing up. He graduated college from California University of PA, PSAC school. Got into coaching, was at a small Division II school in Ohio, and then was at Gannon University as an O-line coach. And then when Joe Moorhead went down to Mississippi State, he was the grad assistant there at Mississippi State, and then he found his way to Missouri this year, and he loves it. He's a coach, I think, for the rest of his life, honestly.
And what's his position?
O-line.
O-line coach said, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool career, man. That is awesome. Like even if you don't want to make it up, not because not everybody wants to be a head coach, but just that lifestyle, it's tough and it's a lot of hours, but very, very rewarding at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Like you're living out your dream essentially, and that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about you? You ever going to get into coaching around here? Go back to the alma mater?
I thought about it. I thought about maybe picking it up at a couple schools here and there, But I think right now I'm trying to build the future for my little nephew. He's getting ready to get into little pee-wee football, so maybe I'll be a defensive coordinator or something there. But
there you go.
I don't know. I don't want to be too tough on the youngsters a little bit.
I love it. Hey, you got to get them into shape early,
Absolutely.
Start them young.
Start them young.
Yeah, maybe I'll get together with Ty's brother or something. We'll get a squad going.
There you go.
Right.
Start a little dynasty.
Yep, the coaching tree begins here.
Yeah,
love it.
right.
Yeah.
Well, Ben, it's great to see you here. Ben Abercrombie, our guest picker for the evening. What do you think, Tyler? Get some picks?
All right, so we got 5 games, and then we'll go. Game number 6 will be the Penn State game, and every game's going to be a head-to-head pick. Penn State will give the spread for that, and then you don't have to give a score for every game. If you do, that's up to you. We're going to start off with a very enticing game. We know some of our listeners out there, Coastal Carolina graduate Grant Opaliski, is pumped up about this game. Bob, he wants you to go down to that game to watch it with him.
I like it.
He wants you to rent an RV and go down and tailgate with him because he's down in South Carolina right now. But
a big weekend for Coastal Carolina. The old Chanticleers with DJ, Dustin Johnson.
Oh, did he go
winning
there?
the Masters?
Really? Wow. How about that? I did not know that. But I know he won the Masters. I just didn't know he went to school there. But Appalachian State, obviously, say no more. People know the name. They travel to Coastal to play on that funky color turf. And it should be a great game. And Coastal Carolina is top 15 in the country right now.
Yeah, really interesting. I don't know. Maybe we'll have our guest pickers.
We'll go down and then I'll finish.
Yeah,
up.
I mean, I think you said it already. I mean, Appalachian State, historically a good program outside the Power 5 conferences for the last 3 years, ever since they made that move to Division 1, out of AA. But let me tell you something. Jamie Chadwell down at South Carolina in that state, down in Coastal Myrtle Beach, I think he's turned this well-known baseball, golf, party, spring break school into a solid football program. And I think they're the team to beat right now outside of the Power 5 conferences. They got something good going down there. And, who knows what happens in the future for this guy. I think he might be the next South Carolina coach.
Yep, his name, we were talking about that a little bit earlier. I didn't know his name, but I did know his name was popping up for that.
And I know it's so tough, but if you look at some of these guys, I mean, they have some serious sweet videos going around with their mullets and everything. I think the Shants are going to get the win here.
Yeah, I think you've convinced me, and for Grant as well.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick the Chanticleers.
But you're not going down, are you, for the game?
No.
To be determined.
There is a strong Shants following in southeastern PA amongst our group right now. So I've been riding them literally this whole year with picks.
And they're a fun team to watch. And their quarterback can play, Grayson McCall. You're going to hear his name come up in the transfer portal because he's that good. And in a school like Penn State that needs a quarterback, might take a look at him if he's open for that. Yeah, I mean, Appalachian State, we all know what they are and what they have done in the past. But, Coastal Carolina's riding right now. They're hot. I don't – in a year like this, I mean, you could be seeing them in like a New Year's Six type of bowl game. I don't think they'll quite get to the playoff, even if they go undefeated just because of the system. But that'd be quite the story, seeing them in like a New Year's Six bowl game.
No doubt about it.
I'm going to take Coastal as well. So everyone's picking Coastal. Next, we're gonna go to the Big Ten. We have Indiana taking on Ohio State noon on Fox Saturday. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Vegas had the line at 21.5. I think that's pretty telling right there. I mean, Indiana's riding some big wins against, I'm not going to say the one on week 1, but obviously Michigan they beat. And I think I know a couple Hoosiers are wondering when they're going to get respect. I guess, listen, Indiana's a basketball school. What they're doing right now, I think that head coach has turned around that program. But they can't go 4 quarters with Ohio State. I'm taking, Fields and Ryan Day and the Buckeyes.
Yep, I think running away. I think this is the Buckeyes' year. We've been talking about it. The delta that they have established amidst the best of the Big Ten, certainly Michigan and Penn State being a bit down, doesn't help, doesn't hurt Ohio State. But this is some of the best Ohio State football that we've seen in our lifetimes, and I think they rout Indiana.
And they're coming off of an unscheduled bye week due to the cancellation of the Maryland game.
Yeah.
I think 21 points is a lot.
They'll cover.
But
I think.
yeah, I think Indiana will cover. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's Ohio State and everybody else in the Big Ten, and that's what we've been saying, and that's what's going to happen. So Ohio State's going to win that. Interesting matchup in the Big Ten West, however. Wisconsin, who is looking like a well-oiled machine even after a 2-week hiatus, takes on really a red-hot Northwestern team right now on the road.
Yeah, I think Northwestern, I always give them respect every year. I think head coach Pat Fitzgerald does a heck of a job there. I mean, they get good. They do really well with the talent that they have, meaning that they are almost like an Ivy League type school, and they still put out great teams. But I think the key to this is Graham Mertz. Usually you look at a Wisconsin quarterback and you think, all right, it's like a bread sandwich, nothing really to it. They got a strong run game. But this guy looks pretty solid, and he looks like a solid recruit that they stole from, Alabama was looking at him. I'm going to take Wisconsin here.
Well, the going joke has been that they can win with anything at quarterback, so I'm going to say Wisconsin can win with a bread sandwich at quarterback. Instead, they got a guy like Graham Mertz who can really throw the ball around the yard. I like Wisconsin to continue. I think they're going to win out and set up an undefeated 1v1 in that 9+1
and remember,
game
they're only going to be 6-0 because those 2 games were canceled and
they'll
there's
still
no
play
makeup.
Ohio State
they will,
though, in that
and that'll
+1.
still be essentially a buy-in to the playoff
Playing game.
Yeah. Hopefully we make it that far. And then next we're going to go actually to where College Game Day is. Bedlam, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma.
Who'd you pick there, by the way?
Oh, I didn't pick. Wisconsin. Wisconsin. I saw everything I needed to see on Saturday night. They steamrolled Michigan.
They look bad.
Who also, Michigan and Penn State don't look great, and people were expecting them to be pretty good this year, but Wisconsin just steamrolled them. Pat Fitzgerald will probably have Northwestern playing a close game for majority, but too many big boys on Wisconsin and Graham Mertz. So,
and you said you hope we get to the college football playoff. It's a very loose we. We collectively.
Well,
we the United States.
I hope that they can keep playing, but that who knows what's going to happen down the road here.
Yes.
Bedlam, Oklahoma State at Oklahoma.
So with Bedlam, I kind of think you throw out the record books on this one. It's always a hectic game. You always kind of expect it in December, around like the first week of December. But, of course, with, the schedule and everything being different, we get it a little bit early. I've kind of gone up in the air. I mean, Mike Gundy, I know he's a perennial 9-3 type of coach, 8-4. They look sexy out there, throwing the ball, putting up some nice points. But out of the last 5 Bedlam games, Sooners won. I think it's going to make it 6 in a row. I'm not a fan of Rattler, but I think Lincoln Riley gets the boys ready to play.
Yeah, Spencer Rattler, I agree. It leaves a little bit to be desired. Not afraid to throw it anywhere in the yard, though. There's no doubt about that. Kind of a gunslinging type of quarterback. Oklahoma State, I wouldn't say broke my heart because I don't really care, but broke the Big 12's heart when they lost to Texas. That was a bad loss, and the way they lost that game, that should not have happened. I think that opens the door for Oklahoma, not that it matters for the college football playoff. To sneak in, backdoor the Big 12, and win it again this year, I think that happens. I think Oklahoma wins this game.
I'm going to go Pokes here, really because of Chuba Hubbard. I think he's probably the best. Well, maybe not the best, but he's a top 3 running back in college football. So I'm going to go Oklahoma State there. Also change some things up a little bit because it looks like we've all pretty much had the same picks through here. We're going to go out to the Pac-12 right now. USC at Utah, reminding you that Utah has not played a game yet. This is their first game. USC's already played 2. Utah's first game.
Yeah, I actually had that in my notes that Utah, this is their first game of the year, which reminds me that their second to last game of the year last year was against Oregon when they were 1 game away from the college football playoffs. I've watched USC the past 2 weeks. I'm not impressed. 2 come from behind wins in the fourth quarter. I know they have a lot of hype. I know Slovis seems to be the guy there. I just don't think you can play with fire this long and expect to keep winning. I think Utah's going to come out hungry. I like Whittingham, by the way, as a head coach.
Yeah.
He always gets them ready to play. So I'm going to go with the Utah Utes.
The Buffalo Bills fans like their new guy, by the way, Zach Moss at running back. He's a really solid player. That said, I'm just going to pick the known commodity, which you don't really know what USC brings, but at least you kind of know what they are. I'm going to pick USC in a close one, just kind of throwing my hands in the air.
I'm going to go Utah here as well. I think that, this is their first game. I think they're going to be up for it. That can kind of go either way. Like USC's got 2 under their belt, but Utah having their 2 games canceled, I see them coming out fired up. And I think that is it Willingham or Whittingham?
Whittingham.
I think you said the right name, but I think that he is up there. He kind of reminds me of a Pat Fitzgerald. I think they're 2 of the most underrated coaches in college football. They don't get enough respect because of their programs might not be that namesake name.
Yeah.
But they get the job done.
And I would give the nod to Utah on a national level as a program over Northwestern.
Yeah.
Absolutely, but just phenomenal coaches that can get the most out of their players. So that's another reason I like Utah. We're gonna go to our next game. I was looking at the text that I sent earlier. We're gonna actually do a bonus game here. We weren't gonna do this game, but then we got Ben on for the picks, so we're gonna head down to the SEC. We have Missouri Tigers, coached by I don't know the head coach's name. I can't say.
Eli Drinkwitz.
And on the staff we have Jack Abercrombie, Ben's brother. So we're gonna go down to the SEC. We have the Tigers taking on the Will Muschamp-less Gamecocks of South Carolina, fired the other day.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, so here you go. I mean, I think I know where these picks, or at least where your picks going. So Missouri, South Carolina.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be I'm not gonna be biased in my pick at all, but Missouri's coming off 2 weeks a bye essentially, with everything going on, and I think you already mentioned it. Will Muschamp gone at South Carolina. A lot of questions. I think this is a big game, though, actually, for both programs because Missouri's trying to create a winning culture out there. They had a couple big wins, LSU, Kentucky. Obviously hit a rough patch against Florida and Dan Mullen, but nonetheless, I think they have established a good run game. If they do that and Bazelak out there, quarterback, doesn't turn it over, their defense plays well, and they kind of silence South Carolina right away because you never know when a coach gets fired who's going to show up,
Right.
like what type of team.
Maybe they don't show up, or maybe they come out guns blazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think when Spurrier left, they were literally to get hyped up at South Carolina. They were like fist fighting prior to a game.
Nice.
And I think they won that game actually. So you kind of wonder what's going to show up. But I'm going to go with Missouri. I think it's going to be a tough game though. Hard-nosed programs.
Yep. Would you say with Will Muschamp getting fired, and there's probably a top moment that I'm forgetting, but last year's South Carolina victory over Georgia with a chance to go to the college football playoff with a backup quarterback for South Carolina.
That was early in the season, too.
Early enough in the season. Was that arguably the one of, if not the most surprising results in a very long time in college football, given everything that's going on with South
Probably
Carolina?
thinking about how South Carolina, I mean, that was really their best moment probably, within the last 10 years.
Yeah, since Clowney and Lattimore.
Yeah, I mean, it's just they're like that one program that just can't. They're kind of like in purgatory. Like they can't really. I don't know. You're competing with Clemson in state, which is like impossible.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you're recruiting in SEC country. I mean, it's tough.
I kind of liked those teams though a while back. Alshon Jeffrey, Marcus Lattimore, Steven Garcia, quarterback.
Spurrier would just rotate the quarterbacks for no reason.
Right. He buried Steven Garcia, but no, they had so many good recruits. Clowney.
What was it? Dylan Thompson playing quarterback after
Connor Shaw.
Connor Shaw.
Yeah.
And they can never get over the hump. I actually think earlier in the year when South Carolina beat Auburn, that extended Muschamp's career for a little bit longer.
That was their last win.
Yeah.
He hasn't.
Exactly.
That was his last win at South Carolina, and that was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and him and Gus Malzahn are kind of in the same boat with me. They always find a way to keep their career going. I think it doesn't benefit the program that much, though. They get that big win, and then it's like, all right, we're going to keep them for another 5 games or a year.
And I'm sure Will Muschamp will find the job as a defensive coordinator somewhere. I mean, he knows defense. I'm just not sure. The head coach may have been too much for him, but he should resurface somewhere.
Real quick as well, Auburn, Gus Malzahn. It is funny how long they've kept on to him after firing Gene Chizik a couple games into the following season after they won the national championship with Cam. Funny to think about.
Crazy.
Weird situation there. I don't know.
Mizzou, though.
You taking Mizzou? All right, there we go.
Yeah. I'm going Missouri because I don't want to get beat up by this big guy, and I don't want his brother to get wind of it either. So. I'm going to go Missouri, and it's kind of easy for me because I just don't think South Carolina's one that good of a football team, and 2, I don't see them responding well to the coach being fired. And granted, that can go either way, but that's just how I see it. I see Missouri winning, another good win for the program and the new coach down there, and hopefully getting that culture turned over down there in Missouri. And then the final game, obviously, like we always end the show, is Penn State. They take on Iowa. Penn State 0-4, Iowa 2-2. Iowa 2-0 in their last 2 games. Travels to Penn State, and we're going to go -2.5 points. Iowa is favored. Give us your winner and your score, Ben.
All right, so I didn't write any notes down for this because I didn't want you guys looking at it, possibly not allowing me to pick. But I'm a big Kirk Ferentz guy. I don't know what it is there, but he gets guys ready to play. And I think Penn State, this is probably the biggest game, in Penn State football in a while. I mean, in a while, other than the USC Rose Bowl. Well, I'm saying specifically for the season, though. I mean, this is going to tell a lot out of them.
It will tell a lot, but a lot's already been told too. So.
Yeah, I would say no. It's not the biggest Penn State game in a while. But
I think for James Franklin, though, this is a big game for his career. Where are they going to go with him? Is the team going to come out, play tough for this coach? I mean, a lot of talks going around. He's a good recruiter. He's a great recruiter.
Yep.
He gets guys up there, but can he really get them over the edge? I mean, you have one win over Ohio State.
Right.
After that, nothing. I mean,
close. 1-point losses, losing them at the end of the game. No,
Absolutely.
you're definitely right on with that
Yeah.
point for sure.
I just think, I'm interested to see for you guys' sake and his sanity that they come out and they play very well. I think 2.5 is actually good for Penn State. That's a telling line.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought it'd be about a touchdown for Iowa, but it wasn't, and it wasn't even close to that. So
Yeah, and Iowa, they're nothing great on offense, so I think the guys for Franklin are going to play well. And you know what, you guys got the juices going over here. I think I'm going to take Penn State here. I'm going to take it 27-24, the Lions.
All right, good pick. Good pick. I'm going to take Iowa. We're going to go back. We're going to go back to what we talked about on the whiteboard, and that's sure you can make the offense as simple as you want. I think it's a little bit of a red herring with Will Levis's performance in a game where you didn't have Nebraska preparing for him at all. I think now a full week, if in fact it is Will Levis playing quarterback, at bare minimum they're going to get some film and prepare for him. And that one-trick pony, again, I don't mean that in a bad way, but Will Levis does one thing very well and throwing the ball not quite as well. I think they're going to be ready for that, stack the box, and Iowa's going to win the football game.
what do you think the score is going to be?
It's going to be ugly. I think it'll be ugly.
Not 6-4 ugly like in the
No,
early 2000s when
not
they played.
6-4 ugly. Although Auburn keeps coming up 3-2 over Mississippi State 10 years ago.
that
That
game
might
like
even
two?
that was
Oh,
even
man.
worse than the 6-4 game. But I like something like 20-9 or something.
Oh, God.
crazy.
That
Nice.
sounds ugly for offense.
I actually am going to pick Penn State to win just because I've been picking them a lot, really, with the exception of Ohio State, and I've been wrong, and I got to be right one of these times. So,
Or you can keep
right,
reducing.
but I don't know. I just think that the spark that I saw at the end of the game with Levis coming in, I think that might carry over. Again, it's going to be the keys jumping out, not always playing catch up in these games. You got to get off to a good start, turnover-free football. I think Penn State wins somewhere about 24-20. I do like them to finally get their first win. Now, I don't know if we'll be talking about their first win of the year or another loss next week, but I think it should be a pretty telling game, and especially at the quarterback position. I'm interested to see what Will Levis can do in his first start of the season.
All right, I like it. Good picks here, guys. Ben Abercrombie, our guest picker tonight. Thanks for joining us here in the studio.
Yeah, make sure you keep track of my record too. I think I got some good ones. If it comes down to that Penn State one, I'm going to be upset. But
Yeah.
it's all love for you guys.
We may have a +1 just like the Big Ten. So last year we had a tie, and the two pickers that tied had to come back into the studio championship weekend. We may have to do a +1 here as well, and we'll keep you in the mix. Hope you have a good week of results here.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It's fun getting out here and just shooting the breeze.
There you
Shooting the
go.
breeze.
Talking
some
sports.
high school and college football. Tell us about the Wood teams of old. I always enjoy that stuff. So thank you very much.
Thanks again, Bob.
Tyler, thank you. Good doing this together.
Yep,
as always.
absolutely. Always a fun time, despite the results the season has been. We've had our better days, but it's still a good time to talk.
Yep, and we'll tell it like it is every week here on the Nittany Lions Sports Report. Again, he's Tyler. I'm Bob. That's Ben Abercrombie, our guest picker tonight. See everybody next week. Enjoy the football.